this is Tom, and I'm going to walk through a purchasing demonstration in Sage X3. X3 has the ability to automate some of our purchasing for us with the material requirements planning. So we're going to talk about that, setting up parameters on the products to drive our MRP and whatnot. But let's just talk about the manual method first of our purchasing. We can go in at any time and manually create a purchase order. Purchase order is pretty straightforward. We have to put a supplier in, obviously, that we're purchasing from, and the items that we're purchasing. Go ahead and hit the plus button to say what plant we're purchasing to, the supplier we're purchasing from. We'll say this is Easton Chemical. We can have some internal reference, some other setup information here, but basically we go to our line items and we can put our line items in and go from there. Quantity, we say 1,000 kilograms of this raw 404. We can tie it to a project if we want. Expected receipt date. Now this goes from today's date plus the lead time for that product, so that's calculated automatically by the system. And then I can keep on adding line items to this purchase order, but basically I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then we could print this off and fax this purchase order to our supplier, or have the system email it, or we could email it ourselves. But we need to send this purchase order to the supplier. They will ship it to us, and then we'll receive it in. A couple things I'll mention is that we can use signature management on purchase orders, so that if we have rules set up, maybe if I'm purchasing certain products like supplies or service items, or if the purchase order is over a certain dollar amount, that we need a manager to sign off on this. And then if X3 has signature management set up, and then we're requiring a signature, so this says not managed, so it's not turned on, but we could be waiting for a signature. So if this purchase order is created and it looks at our rules for signature management and says, hey, we need to sign this, we need to have a manager sign this purchase order, I would not be able to print or receive this purchase order until a manager signed off on it. So I don't have this turned on right now, so I don't have to sign anything. I can go ahead and print this purchase order, email it out to my supplier if I wish. So I could just do that by going to our print, fills this in. We're previewing this right now, but we could say to send this via email. That's a message PDF attachment. Print this, and we should get a little dialog box that we could type in our subject and email address. Now typically we set this up automatically, so we can put a supplier or an email address on the supplier record, and then we have a pre-canned subject and message, and then we'd send this out automatically. But this is just a manual way of sending it out. So here's the destination email address for this report. Click OK, and now this purchase order has been emailed out. So at this point we email it out, and then purchase order 97, we would have to receipt that in. So the truck pulls up to our dock, it unloads it, they give us the packing slip, we look at the packing slip, we see who the supplier is, we go and create a receipt transaction in X3, create a new one. I would typically what we do is we choose our supplier. Then once we choose our supplier, we can click on order selection over here, and we'll see all the purchase orders for the supplier. And then we can click on the purchase order and bring in all the line items in, or if it's just a partial shipment and it was just one line item, we would just click on the one line item, bring that in. And if they shipped us the right quantity, we really don't have to change anything. We just go ahead and hit create, and then this product would be added to inventory. Now this is saying there's a lot complement, so we have a lot tracking turned on for this product, and we haven't entered any lot details. It says, do you wish to continue? I'll say yes. I'm not going to enter any lot details. There's some user definable fields with the lot number, lot tracking that we can turn on products, but we're not required to do anything. So we've created this product, it is in inventory, and now we'd wait for our supplier invoice to enter that to complete that loop. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but so that is the normal manual process, purchase order and receiving. We can do that manually all day long, but let's now start talking about some of the other tools within X3. Number one, let's go look at the purchase requisition function, or purchase request. So we might only want our buyers, our planners, to actually initiate purchase orders, but we might want to allow people within our company, the stock room, the shop floor, project managers, to enter purchase requests to tell the purchasing manager what they need for their jobs. So we can use the purchase request feature in X3. So I can go in here, and if I'm a user in X3, I can go ahead and just say what I need. I can just go say I need that raw 401 gelatin B type, and I need that by next week. So I'm going to put +7 in there next week, and then I say I need 1,000 kilograms. Now I can put a supplier in here if I know who the supplier is, but I might leave that blank and let my purchasing manager actually determine who he wants to order that from. We can also do non-stock items as well. I can put shop supplies in here, machine supplies, other supplies. So here's machine supplies, and I need 50 units of those machine supplies. Whoops, that's my date field. I need that tomorrow. And then I need 25 of those, and then I know I need that from supplier NA09, which is ABC Industrial. I go ahead and create this purchase request, and the purchasing manager would be notified, or he'd see this purchase request on his dashboard. He can come and review it, and then he can actually convert this into an order. He could change my quantities, he could change my supplier numbers if he wished, but then we can convert this into a purchase order, or it could be multiple purchase orders, because if your purchasing manager comes in and says, I want to order this from NA059, go ahead and save this. So now we have two products, two separate suppliers. When I click on order, it's going to go ahead and generate two purchase orders, one for each one of those suppliers. And I had an error, so I must be missing something. Yeah, I don't have taxes set up correctly on one of my suppliers for one of those products, so it didn't create the purchase order automatically, but we did get our second purchase order to NA059 created, and that was purchase order 098. So I'm not going to worry about the other one. It's just a tax issue on my product or my supplier that's not matching, but that's fine. You get the idea. Purchase requests can be entered by anybody, and then I would give certain people, my purchasing manager, the ability to look at these, manage these, and convert these into actual purchase orders. And there's some other tools and dashboards to manage those purchase requests, but that's just one way to do that. So let's go talk about some of the automatic tools we have in X3 to manage our purchasing cycle. And usually what we use is our MRP process. We can use Reorder Point. Reorder Point and MRP is similar. They generate purchase order suggestions for us. MRP just looks at more data. It'll explode the bills of materials and figure out the raw materials that we need to purchase. Reorder Point doesn't go to that extent. It looks at open work orders, open sales orders, and figures out what we need to purchase. It looks at safety stock, maximum capacity, some of those things. MRP is more complete. It'll look at if I have something on a sales order, it will actually explode the bill of material for that finished good and figure out all the raw materials I need, and if I don't have enough, it starts giving me purchase order suggestions. So typically we run MRP. Usually you could run Reorder Point if it's low value, quick turnaround time, small lead time. If there's something I can order, my suppliers within the same town, I can get it the same day or the next day. Reorder Point is usually sufficient. But if it has a long lead time and I need to explode those bills of materials to see all my raw materials that I might need to use in manufacturing down the road, I'd want to go through the MRP process. So we're going to talk about the MRP process more right now, because that is a more complete, more accurate view of what I need to purchase. But first of all, before we go into that, let's go look at our product site setup, because we need to tell X3 how we want to order these products, what tools we want to use to manage the purchasing process. So let's go look at some of our raw materials. I'm going to look at my 400 product at my North American facilities. Here we go. We're going to look at glycerin, raw 410. So this is a managed item, so we're managing stock counts and inventory. But I really want to look at my planning tab. That's where I really set up all my parameters of this product. And what I am doing on this is setting my stocking levels. So you can see my suggestion type. This is telling, let's start over here on the reordering field. The first thing I'm going to say is how I want to generate suggestions. And here's where I can say Reorder Point or by MRP. We're going to say MRP because that's a more complete view of what we need to purchase. So we're going to say by MRP. And we're going to tell X3 what do we want to do with this product. Are we going to do, we could say no suggestions, purchasing, or inner site. This is interesting that we could have products being manufactured or stored at certain warehouses, and then we transfer them to our others. So if we're doing central purchasing, we might set up purchasing as our suggestion type at our central warehouse. then all our satellite warehouses are going to be intersite transfers from our central warehouse. But in this situation, we're going to say direct purchase to this site. So we're working at site NA22, plant 22, and we're going to say we're going to purchase directly to that site. And we're going to generate those suggestions from MRP. And of course, we have a lot of other parameters. We have our safety stock. We don't want to fall below 1,200 units. And then we have technical lot and EOQs. And what these are purchasing multiples. Technical lot is something we typically can't break. So if we're ordering a case of a product, maybe there's 12 units in a case, our technical lot may be 12 because we can't order half a case, or we shouldn't order half a case. The cost is too much or it's too cumbersome for our supplier. So we always want to order in multiples of that case quantity. Our EOQ is our preferred order method to get our best price, best shipping rates. And so if we're ordering, our technical lot might be 12 because there's 12 units in a case, and so we want to order in multiples of cases. Our EOQ could be an entire pallet. Say there's 10 of those cases on one pallet, so our EOQ might be 120. 12 cases times 10, 12 units per case times 10 cases, 120. If we always order in multiples of 120, we get full pallet quantities, and maybe we get a better rate for shipping or a lower cost from our supplier. Now, technical lot typically is not broken. We're going to purchase in multiples of that. EOQ would be a suggestion that you could break. Maybe I don't need a full pallet, so I'm going to order in a multiple of my technical lot. But MRP kind of uses these tools, and it's always going to suggest you purchase in a multiple of your EOQ, and it's going to warn you if you break your technical lot. So that's what those fields are for. Then we also have our maximum stock, which is kind of important. We want to make sure we don't go over this. And sometimes if we're ordering liquids or bulk products, we might have a silo we're putting that bulk product in, or a storage tank that liquid is going into, and it has a maximum capacity, and we want to make sure we don't go over that at any point in time. So we put the maximum stock in here. It will never let us go over that limit when it's giving us purchase order suggestions with our automatic tools. So these are kind of the setup rules. One thing that's very important of getting correct for MRP to run is our lead time. How long does it take us to get this product in our facility? So this is saying 15 days. So if I need this product next week, MRP is going to throw up a lot of warning messages because it knows it can't purchase this product in less than a week. It's going to tell you that you need to intervene on that suggestion it's generating for you because it can't meet your time frame. But it's kind of important to tell MRP what your accurate lead times are so it knows how to schedule these transactions. MRP always wants to schedule backwards. So if it sees you have a sales order going to a customer on August 1st and you have to build something, it's going to back up and figure out exactly when you need to get that work order started just so you meet that August 1st delivery date to your customer. And then when it knows when that work order needs to start, then it's going to look at your raw materials and look at the lead times on those raw materials and figure out when you need to place those purchase orders so you get that inventory in just in time to begin that manufacturing. It wants to minimize your stock on hand situation, both raw materials and work in process and finished goods. So it tries to minimize your stock levels across your entire production process. So these lead times are accurate, and sometimes you might want to put in some safety levels. Like I can put like a picking time to maybe giving me a little day or two cushion between when the manufacturing work order is done and when it needs to ship to my customer. So we can kind of finagle a couple of these fields to give us some extra cushion on maybe the manufacturing process and whatnot. So anyway, here is the setup that we're going to use to derive our MRP results for this product. And of course we have our internal situation. X3 knows what's going on with this product, how much we have on hand, how much we have on order. So on this down here you can see we have 2,400 units on order, and it knows how much is allocated to various work orders. So this is a raw material. We're not selling this to a customer, we're using this in our manufacturing process, and we have 620 units allocated to various work orders. So X3 is taking track of all the allocations, the usage, what's on order, because obviously all of these factors come into play when it figures out how much we need to purchase with our MRP tool. So with that being said, let's close this. And let's actually, our MRP tool's already been ran, so we can go in and just look at the results of that. So when MRP is running, it's looking at if we're doing if we're a distributor and turning around and just selling products to customer, there's no manufacturing involved. Actually, would look at what's on our sales orders and figure out what we have on hand, tell us we need to purchase that to be able to sell it directly to our customer. But if we're doing manufacturing and whatnot, X3 is looking at our sales orders. Let's look at a manufacturing process map. So MRP is going to be driven by the demand of our finished goods. So we have sales orders in the system. We might also have a sales forecast of what we expect to sell of each product each week, each month. And that sales forecast, those sales orders tell MRP what our demand is. Then MRP is going to look at our bills of materials, explode our bills of materials, and figure out all the raw materials we need, and it's going to give us those suggestions. And that's what we start using our purchasing workbench to take those MRP results and convert those suggestions into firm purchase orders. I'll note that MRP is never going to automatically create a purchase order and send it to your supplier. It creates suggestions. You look at those suggestions, you either approve those suggestions, modify those, or reject those. But the approved suggestions then become true purchase orders, and those true purchase orders is what would go to your supplier. Now, once the MRP parameters tool is running and everything is accurate and everything's been dialed in, so it gives you exactly what you want, we can actually take those suggestions and automatically approve some of those. Maybe certain product categories, certain suppliers that you trust MRP is giving you the right data. We can take those suggestions and automatically convert those into firm purchase orders and release those to your suppliers. But when you first start running MRP, you really want to look at the results of the MRP to make sure things are set up correctly. Are my lead times accurate? Are my quantities accurate? Do I have enough safety stock? Am I over purchasing? Things like that. But once you start trusting the system, we can start automating some of that, some of this work. And actually, let's go in and look at some of the things that we need to do once we get our MRP running. So MRP runs, like I said, explodes our bills of materials, looks at our on-hand raw materials, and figures out what we need to purchase to be able to produce what our customers ordered. So we use this enterprise workbench, enterprise planning workbench. So let's go and look at this. This is the result of our MRP tool. So MRP usually runs every night, and in the morning I would come in and look at my results. So I come in here and I can do a search. Now I can do a lot of filtering because sometimes you get a lot of results. Like here I have 168 results from my MRP run. So sometimes there's a lot of data here, and so you might want to filter this and work on sections at a time. So I might work on certain product ranges. I can do some other criteria. I can look at one business partner, one supplier. I can look at a project. I can look at original documents, dates, product categories. So I might want to break this down and work on certain things. One thing we do typically is I might look at all my packaging materials. So I would go in and actually change my product category to packaging. And I look at all the cases, the cartons, the bottles, the labels, the jars, whatever, those types of things. So if I have packaging set up as a product category, I can segregate those, or maybe I have different people responsible for different things, and so I can go in and manage purchasing or manage my MRP results that way. I don't have a packaging product category here, but typically we would set that up, and then you would choose that, and then when I did my search here, I would just see a smaller set. So I actually reduced my results from 168 to 166. But by using those criteria, I can break this large chunk of purchase order suggestions into smaller pieces that I can work on and research and figure out what I want to do, and then create those purchase orders. So in this situation, if you're looking at this, I have all these suggestions out here. I have all these raw materials, these products. So MRP, when it runs, we typically set MRP to run in weekly buckets. And so if you look at this, I should have suggestions for every week. And let's actually look at one product. I see this 418 is showing up multiple times. So there's actually a couple different tools I can use within this enterprise planning. So enterprise planning is showing me like all my purchase order suggestions. Well, I want to drill in and maybe work on one supplier or one product. So let's say I want to look at just this one product, 418. I can go in and go into my grouping workbench. And what this does is it takes all those suggestions for that product and puts them on one screen that I can kind of group these together. I actually could make one purchase order for these 9 different suggestions. So as I said a second ago, MRP is creating these different time buckets. And our default time bucket is week. We can also do daily buckets, weekly buckets, monthly buckets. Most people tend to use weekly buckets because that's the most efficient. But what that means is it's going to give you a purchase order suggestion for this product for every single week that it has demand for that product. Now you can see I don't have suggestions every single week because I probably am not consuming that product every week. But if this is like a common product that's used across your product line, entire product line, you would have maybe a purchase order suggestion every single week. And if you want to, you can actually create those individual purchase orders, but maybe you get a better price, or maybe you get better, it's more efficient to ship if you combine several orders together. So what I can start doing is using this grouping workbench. And number one, I'm going to exclude all these selections, and then I'm going to go in and say, hey, I want to take these 3 purchase order suggestions, and I'm going to put them onto one purchase order. So I select those 3. And up here, if you look at some of this, I can say what my total weight is. I have 5,500 pounds, and my volume is 110 cubic. I'm not sure if that's feet, meters. I assume it's probably feet. But whatever I have my unit of measure set up in is what that is converted to. But I can see when I'm suggesting these what my selected weight and volume is if I'm trying to fill a container. The other thing I can do up here is a nice feature is I can choose what kind of shipping container. So if I know that what kind of truck I'm trying to fill, I can actually fill that in. I can say there's 1 container, and now I can look at this and see what my available weight is and what my available volume is. You see I'm already over my volume. I filled up more than 1 container, so I need to turn off one of these lines, actually 2 of those lines. And now I have 1.8, this is meters cubed, and kilograms is what my unit of measures are in. So I have 1.8 cubic meter available. So that one purchase order kind of filled my container. I could use a different container size. A lot of times this would be for overseas, but if you're trying to fill a semi-truck from your supplier, in this situation I am just using one product. I am just using that raw 418, but I didn't need to do that. If I come in here and erase my product as my criteria on this grouping workbench, but I leave my supplier number out here, I will get all the products I have ordered by default from the supplier. So now let's search and see if there's anything else that's going to pop up. Yeah, there is. I am getting some different products out here now, so I have a bunch more selected. So here's the supplier, the default supplier for all those. The one thing I have hidden on this screen is my actual item number. So these screens are configurable, and that's just turned off on that screen, but that's fine. I would actually just go into the setup screen and turn that back on, but not a big deal for what we're doing right now. But what we could do then is I'm going to exclude all of these. Now we could choose a couple of these line items, different products we're choosing, and we're filling up our container. I'm going to say even though we're over, they're going to stuff it in and make it fit. And what I do is click on generate, and we'll get a purchase order, one purchase order for all these check marks. Now one thing I'll mention, I say one purchase order, but we could actually be breaking these up into multiple suppliers. You can see that my BP number, actually I take that back on this screen, our grouping workbench, we can only do it for one supply. No, I'm sorry, we can change this. I thought we could. I can actually order this product from a different supplier. So I can change my quantities and my suppliers on the screen, and when I hit generate, I would get a purchase order for each supplier that I have listed. So in this situation, I should get 2 different purchase orders. But this grouping workbench, so you see we got 2 of those required, 2 of those created. So go ahead and close this. Close this and go back to our enterprise planning. So this is how we kind of use our enterprise planning. I don't need to go in the grouping workbench. If I get a purchase order suggestion out there, so we have a purchase order suggestion for 125 kilograms of tartic acid, I can click on the action icon here, and I don't need to go to grouping. I could just go to plan order, And this lets me go, there's an intermediate screen. I can override my default supplier. I could change my quantity if I wanted to. Say I want 150 pounds. I'm going to order it from Genesis Manufacturing, and I click on the order button. We will get a purchase order for this product, for this 411 product. And here's our purchase order 99. And now I close this and I'm back in my MRP results, and that product at 411 is now gone. It's been converted from a suggestion to a firm. So I kind of worked through this list determining what I want to do. And one thing I'll note is that the reason we run MRP at night is so that you can work through this list throughout the day. You're going to get phone calls, you have other things going on, you have meetings, and you kind of want to get through this list. But if you don't get through the list today, MRP is going to run tonight, and when MRP runs, it's going to delete all of my open suggestions, everything I haven't worked on, delete those, runs MRP, and these suggestions would be created again, and I could work on them tomorrow if need be. So I typically want to kind of look at requirement dates and make sure I'm handling the things that are in my immediate horizon the next couple weeks. And things further out, I may not need to place that purchase order yet, but so I kind of use these date ranges up here to kind of filter, work on the critical things today, and then as I get time throughout the day, I work on the other things farther out in the future. And if I don't get to those things farther out in the future, as long as those sales orders, as long as that demand's still in the system, I'm going to get that same purchase order suggestion tomorrow if nothing else has changed with that raw material. So that is kind of how I can use these tools to manage this. So there's some other things in here as well. I'm just to show, if I showed the grouping workbench, how I can take one product or one supplier and kind of create one mass purchase order. I can either take suggestions from multiple weeks and combine them onto one purchase order, or I can take multiple products for one supplier and put them on one purchase order. If I do this plan initiate from here, I get one product on that purchase order. So sometimes I want to use that grouping workbench to create a consolidated or one mass purchase order rather than creating 25 purchase orders for one supplier. But there's also this planning workbench that I haven't shown yet. So if I'm looking at this product, say I'm looking at urea raw 404, and I'm looking at 250 kilograms. So I'm saying, what's going on with this product? What's the transaction flow for this? I can go into my planning workbench, and it brings up that product and it shows me all my needs. This is like a running transaction for everything that's going to happen with this product in the future. Here's all the requirements I need. The requirements is either I'm selling this directly to a customer or I'm consuming this on a work order. So requirements is consuming this product, and of course the supplier order is this purchase order suggestion generated by MRP. But what it shows me is these expected stock after every one of these transactions. And I also see the source product over here. So this would be the material requirements. This is a work order I have for this product, INT 401, that's consuming this product, raw 404. So I kind of can see the flow, the ebb and flow. I see my high points, my low points, just what my expected stock is going to be at any point in time. And of course, what I'm looking for is if I ever see this go negative, that would be crucial. But if everything happens on time, that kind of tells me my stock running quantity for this product, if you will. And I have a lot of other data out here, but this just kind of just gives me a nice little way to see what's going on in this product. What is using this product? When am I placing my orders? I can look at suggested work orders, firm work orders. I would see all that in this list. So it's just a nice way. And if I want to, I actually can graph out my on-hand quantity. So here's my expected stock, here's my safety stock, and then my maximum stock, which I don't have set. So I can just see my expected stock, and you see what MRP is doing on a weekly basis. It's always maintaining my 1579. That must be what it, based on my setup for this product, what it wants me to always have, 1579 every single week. So it's pretty consistent with those MRP results coming in and whatnot. So this is just some planning tools that we can use to kind of drill in and see the details or the projected flow of this product. So that is just a quick overview of some of the tools we have in X3 to manage our purchasing cycle. Thanks for watching.